Welcome back to another episode of the Directors Club podcast, brought to you by Cumbria Chamber of Commerce. In this series, we get to explore some of the most interesting characters, directors and leaders from Cumbria, and on occasion, beyond. The Directors Club is kindly sponsored by Rachel Bell Wealth Management and Muckle LLP. Today, I get to speak to the amazing Johanne Miller from Twoey Toys. Now, Johanne is absolutely brilliant and this podcast is hilarious. I do want to add a little disclaimer to the start of this though, that there is a reference to a member of the royal family who was working at the time back in 2006 and is no longer working. This is not condoning, this is not an affiliation, it's merely a mention. So please take it on face value for exactly what it is. Now, enjoy the podcast. Hi Jo, thanks for joining me.
Hiya, you're very welcome. How are you?
I'm very well. How about you?
Oh, I try not to think how well I am, because if I put too much thought into it, I might not be as well as I would hope. So you just crack on with life.
Absolutely. Can we start by you telling me a bit about yourself and your background? Like, where are you from?
Right, well, I'm not obviously going to give too many years away, dates, etc. But I was born in the East End of London. I was, and my father's job brought us up to here, up to Carlisle in the early 70s, because he worked for Kangol, the seatbelt manufacturer that was in Carlisle in Norfolk Street. I think it's now a load of houses actually. So yeah, he brought the family up here, and I don't think he was overly happy, because back in those days the Southerners didn't know that there was anything north of Watford. They didn't. So I think he was dragged. But then when they got established here, found somewhere to live and met all the locals, they became great ambassadors for the Lake District and never wanted to move away ever again. So we did actually. They took us, Dad's job again, then took us south of Watford again down to Kent. That was the mid-70s. So I spent half of my secondary schooling down in Kent. But then, because Mum and Dad loved it up here so much, when Dad started his own business in 1979, I think it was, brought us back up here. It did, or they did. And I then went to Carlisle, what is now Carlisle College. It was a technical college in those days, and did an ordinary national diploma in hotel and catering management, which I thoroughly enjoyed most of it. Just I didn't like the cooking bit actually. I didn't like you. I preferred the interaction with the customers, and that was a great grounding. It was, that course, because yes, you learned to cook to a certain standard, but then you learned how to do silver service, or things that perhaps not people don't do nowadays. How to clean toilets and make a bed. Now, fantastic. And so
a very practical skill to have.
Absolutely. So where did I go then? I finished that course and got my first full-time job down in the Midlands in Northampton, in a very small hotel as the assistant manager, which I thoroughly enjoyed it. However, such hard work, actually. I remember driving down in my little blue Mini. That was my first car, which broke down halfway down to Northampton. Had to call Daddy to come and sort it out. And eventually I got down to this hotel in Northampton. As I said, it was just a small hotel, and it was my first venture into the real world of work. And I arrived, and the manager, who happened to be the chef, turns out he was an alcoholic. So,
No.
oh yes, so I arrived late Saturday afternoon with a view to settling in on Sunday and then starting my job on the Monday. Well, unfortunately, the chef couldn't get up on Sunday morning because he'd had too much to drink. So I ended up having to go into the kitchen straight away and cooking Sunday lunch for 60 people. So.
And how old were you when you did that?
I would have been 18. I will. So baptism by fire.
Was there any complaints about the Sunday dinner, or did it go down pretty well?
I think it went down all right. Yeah, I was 18 or 19, around that age anyway. I don't, well, bearing in mind, as what I said earlier, sometimes I forget my own name, so I can't remember what I did that. It's a long, long time ago. But it was such great grounding, because when the manager and the chef was off, you did their job. When the cleaner was off, you did their job, etc., as well as reception. So such a great grounding. But such hard work, people that work, in that trade nowadays in hotel and catering is, oh God, it is hard work.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely incredible, isn't it? People in hospitality don't get quite the recognition they deserve, I don't think, most of the time.
No, I would totally agree. I even before then, I as I was doing my course at Carlisle Tech, we had various part-time jobs that the college would help us sort, so you'd be going off doing silver service somewhere, and it was great. And then as I started to travel a bit, and you went to other countries and saw how valued the people doing that hospitality role were everywhere else other than here in the UK, and I think that's probably still the case. Yeah. Which is such a shame.
What was it that drove you into hospitality as a first kind of port of call then? Was that something you'd always been interested in, or was it you didn't know what to do, so you just thought, I'll do that?
I did enjoy cooking at home then, and socially, like you were saying, you enjoy talking to people, things. I enjoyed that too. And there was a bit about, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I probably wasn't the most academic of students. Probably a wee bit on the lazy side as well, I think, back then, because you don't understand about life, do you really?
No, absolutely not.
No. However, I was well aware, because of the way my sister and I were brought up, that you had to work hard in life. You did, and you had to earn your own monies. We were spoilt as children, but not monetarily. We were spoilt with wonderful experiences of travel and things like that, so I really can't think why I chose to do that. But as I say, it was because you weren't only learning to do all these hands-on things, we also did accounting. We did, because obviously you have to understand the financials, whatever business you're in, the legal side of hospitality. So there was a lot involved, and back in those days, a full-time course meant a full-time course, so you were in college 5 full days a week. You were not. I don't think that's the case today.
There was no study breaks and half days and things.
No. You were there, and that's it. And funny enough, I was digging through some photographs of my parents, that after they'd both passed away, there's certain things that you segmentize, you put away, because you don't really want to go through them just yet. So, and then I found that they'd kept the same photographs from their parents. So my husband and I had about 2 large boxes of photographs to trudge through last weekend, and found some of me at college. And in some ways it only seems like yesterday, but it's a very long time ago. It is. And I I still don't understand, because obviously I haven't continued along that path.
No, you haven't. So what happened after that first hotel?
Well, my dad had started his own business, in the car industry, and he needed some help. His business was growing. That's the industry that he'd always been in and I had grown up in. So I knew a lot of the people that he knew, obviously, because I'd grown up with them. And his business had got to the point where he needed another salesperson. So he offered me an Austin Allegro, £25 a week, and an expense account, and 25% of the company's shares. And so I joined him, and that enabled me to, because that, as I say, was in the car industry. We were working with car component manufacturers, so I was lucky to travel quite a lot around the world, because we were working with Honda and Nissan, and as well as the then English car manufacturers, British Leyland as it was, and Jaguar. So I did that and continued to earn £25 a week until we started this business in 1996.
So what was that first business that your dad started? What was the purpose of that?
All right. Well, he had always worked. He was an engineer, but had always worked on the sales side in the car industry. So he, as I said, what brought him up here to Cumbria was the fact that he was sales manager of Kangol seatbelts. They had closed their offices in London and told everybody they had to move to their offices here in Carlisle. So he was the sales manager for them, and then he was headhunted, hence we moved down to Kent, by a much bigger manufacturer of components for the inside of a vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
So he was taken on as sales director designate, as the then sales director was due to retire, and Dad would then take over that role. Unfortunately, this gentleman unfortunately, I don't know whether that's whoever would perhaps say that, this guy was due to retire, decided to leave his wife and run off with a 28-year-old. So the guy couldn't afford to retire. So he decided to stay on in that job. And
so he didn't actually run off, he stayed to
he run
fund
off.
the
Yes, he had to fund his new relationship and what it was going to cost him to separate from his wife of 35, 40 years as it was then. Ooh. Yeah. So Dad decided then he wasn't going to stay on, and he was very well known in that particular industry. And there were quite a number of European car component manufacturers who wanted to sell here into the UK. Mm-hmm. So Dad started his own consultancy / agency, working with these companies, selling their products to the UK car manufacturers, or the car manufacturers that were established here in the UK or establishing. Mm-hmm. So with the proviso, because he was very British and proud of it, that if he got enough business for his clients, that they would set up manufacturing here in the UK. Mm-hmm. Was delivering certain large items, bits for cars from France or Sweden, just in time onto a car manufacturing plant wouldn't be cost effective or very easy. So throughout the number of years, he did pick up quite a lot of business from UK car manufacturers, and that's why he asked me to join, because it was a great growth time for him. And we then went on to set up 3 companies here in the UK, manufacturing sites, to supply Honda, Nissan and Jaguar, British Leyland, Austin Rover, etc. And as a company, we always took a financial interest in those businesses as well.
Mhm.
So it was interesting time. I learned a lot, and for employing people, as we all know, is not easy. There's
No.
a lot of hard work, quite rightly, that should go into your employees. But for him to take on me, it was cheap. There was no trust issue, if you see what I mean, and no issue of a work ethic.
It was a logical next step.
Yeah. And I had enough of working in kitchens at that point, at the particular role I was doing in the Midlands, because of the alcoholic chef, and decided that that wasn't for me. I didn't mind doing the serving and the bar work and reception, but no. So that's where I stayed with father. Our last manufacturing site was in Northampton, and made car seats for Jaguar. So yeah, and as I say, that took me to Japan and all sorts of places. It was great.
How long were you with that business?
For me, until we sold our shares in that company, which was 1995. So, now you're making me think. When did I
quick maths?
Yeah, I joined him in 83, I think it was, and then we changed businesses in or bought out of that particular venture in 1995. So, and at that time we as a business weren't, or as a family didn't know what we were going to do. My father was working with Frank Williams of the, see what I mean, how sometimes you get this blank.
I'm impressed that you can remember all of these names.
Well, it's amazing, isn't it? They quite rightly say that you can perhaps remember many years ago, but you can't remember this morning as you're getting older, and I think that's quite true. So yeah, at the time Dad was working with Frank Williams of the Williams racing team, trying to develop something that help him stand up. He was also he'd made things. I'd started my family at that point, or had my first child at the end of the 80s in 89. So, and he'd made things for them. And so we were sort of in a bit of a quandary. We had this money and we didn't know what we really wanted to do. So dabbled in different things. It allowed me at that point to perhaps spend a little bit more time with my children, which was really nice, obviously. And I was still living in the Midlands at that time.
Right.
And yeah, it was then that I also had the time to work with or help a friend of mine to set up her own private day nursery, which is how this business started, because she had seen all the things that my dad had made for my children. And starting this day nursery, she said, because she was a deputy head of a primary school and wanted to leave there and set up this business, but she didn't want to do the business side. She just really was interested in looking after the children. So she asked me, as I was had a little bit of time on my hands, would I help her do that? And in the meantime, would Dad make all the things to equip this nursery school? So we did that, and then in the sort of mid 1995, she said, "Oh, you should really be selling this stuff that was in this nursery, to the other schools and nurseries, because there's nothing like it that she could see in the catalogues that supplied the industry." So in January 1996, Mum, Dad and I took our wares and took a stand at the International Toy and Hobby Fair at Olympia to test the waters. This was January 1996, to see if there was any interest in these products. and that was the start of where we are, what's here today.
What is now with Twoey Toys.
Yeah.
So what were the original things that your father made? Did he make them like in the garage, or did he?
Yes.
And he made them himself.
Yeah.
What did he make?
He made a play shop theatre and a board and easel, and yes, he made them in the garage. With cut them out with, I don't know the name of these tools. Was it a jigsaw or something? Spray painted. We've still got the hooks in the garage where he hung the components to spray paint them. But he made these products because at the time I lived in a 3-bedroom semi with not a lot of space, and these were big products. But he made them so they would all slot together easily. So when the children weren't playing with them, I could store them under the bed, which was very, very useful. And actually we still bring out, although my 2 granddaughters have grown, they're a bit above that now, but we still have those products and bring them out for the grandchildren there in the loft. So he made a shop that turned into a puppet theatre, a board and easel. He made a little computer desk, because back in the day, the computers were really big.
Yeah, with the big long tube screens.
Absolutely, yeah. And what else? Oh, little 3-piece suite, child size, little tables and chairs, all sorts of little things. And as I say, this friend of mine saw them and said, oh, right, could you, and she said, oh, can you we need these things as well. Could you make them? And I asked him, and he said, yes. So he made them in the garage at home. And we thought, because I had got to understand a bit about the industry and agreed with my friend that there wasn't that much available that wasn't very, very expensive or quite boring, really. So we took this stand at the International Toy and Hobby Fair at Olympia. We had an A4 folded brochure, and because we only had about 6 products show, and it was a very, very successful show. I remember we were at Olympia upstairs in the sort of, I don't know, what do they call it, in the eaves sort of thing, and we were opposite the Sega Game Boy thing stand. So when we had a quiet time, we were playing on all these
on the Segas.
This is 1996, so it's quite a time away, 26 years. So they were just invented, were they then? Can't remember. But yeah, we got a lot of interest at that show, and that's what made us, or confirmed our belief that that's the route that the business should take, because our experiences of being partnered with other big corporations was that nobody really cared about you, your partners or your fellow shareholders in these businesses, because invariably they were big French companies or Swedish companies, and what they didn't care. I remember the last company we were partnered with, and they had decided that they wanted to dissolve our connection with the business because it had got to the point where it was profitable, and they were well established, and our agreements, if they left it any longer, was going to cost them a hell of a lot of money to get rid of us. So I remember my father thinking, having spent thousands and thousands of pounds on lawyers, both English and French, to make sure that we had a watertight contract. Well, that's where we learned that actually a lot of contracts and things aren't worth the paper they're written on. And you can, as a small company, small family, you can't fight the big companies unless you've got a lot of money. So when Dad said to them, our main partner, we're not going to be bought out, because our buy-it clause was, once the company moved into profit, we were going to get a lot of money. Well, of course, the real world isn't like that. So our partner said, well, you either negotiate, otherwise we dissolve the company and resurrect it without you, which of course they can do. So we said, right, no, okay, yeah, we'll negotiate, and walked away with money and thought, we're never going to have partners ever again.
Yeah.
We're masters of our own destiny as such.
Mm-hmm. So that all sounded like it happened really organically, and it just one thing folded into another, and Twoey Toys came about. Was that trade show Olympia, if that hadn't have worked, did you have any ideas about something else that you wanted to do?
Well, as I say, Dad at the time was working with Frank Williams. I can't remember actually what else we were doing. We had our fingers in a number of pots or whatever they call. I can't remember what word they use.
Fingers in pies.
Yeah, pies. That's it. Thank you. See what I mean? The coordination between my brain and mouth can sometimes be a little hectic. We did lots of things. I was still helping my friend with her nursery.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't remember what else we were doing. I'd got young children as well, so busy time all around, and you don't get time to think much then, you know.
No, you just get on with it.
Yeah, you have to crack on. So in some ways, you know, we were lucky because Twoey did fall in our laps. I suppose you could put it, that we were lucky.
Or do you think that because you were out doing things and helping friends and being involved in stuff, the idea presented itself, whereas if you hadn't been out helping and doing and being involved, you wouldn't have had that inspiration to?
No, if I hadn't had this friend and hadn't, you know, helped her, no, I don't think. Because back in those days, and probably the grandparents that still do, grandparents did make things for their children. You know, I was talking about sorting through photos of my parents and their parents, and there were pictures there of things that their grandparents had made them, things like that, you know. It's unfortunate. Interesting, my youngest daughter is pregnant with her first child, and she did say, would I be making anything? Because when my children were en route and my eldest granddaughter, my mother did a lot of knitting for them, jackets and all sorts of things, made clothes, because she did a lot of sewing and she was very crafty and hands-on. And unfortunately, I didn't take any notice of the lessons that she was passing on. So not being very good as a parent in knitting and things like that. And, you know, and I can't now remember what point I was trying to make.
So you're not going to be knitting and crocheting anything for the grandchildren then?
I've crocheted one big square for a little blanket thing.
Success.
Haven't got the patience. But yeah, I think I now can remember what point we were talking about. We wouldn't have thought, had Dad not have made those things, and I had the friendship with someone who, you know, was in the education market and started her own nursery. No, it wouldn't have occurred to us. I wouldn't have thought about, you know, these things and taking them out and selling them. Would have never occurred to me.
And what happened next? So you went to the trade fair at Olympia.
We did, yeah.
Did you get a whole load of orders from your 6? Did you say it was 6 products you took?
We did, and you don't walk away with orders from shows like that, especially when you're unknown. You know, we made a hell of a lot of contacts, including buyers from John Lewis's and from Debenhams, and from our now customers. Some who were still customers of ours whom we met back, you know, originally in 1996. So our first orders came in July of that year, and we had to hurriedly find a unit to rent, and bought a small £5,000 CNC machine, and Dad and I started to make the products. We got our first orders were from John Lewis's and Debenhams. They were. It was before the overseas procurement really took hold, where everybody went to the Far East and to do their buying.
So is there a chance that the things that you and your father made for those first drops for John Lewis and Debenhams could potentially still be sitting in somebody's house with their grandchildren and great-grandchildren?
It's possible,
because actually 1997 is not that long ago.
No.
Or I keep telling myself that anyway.
Yeah. It maybe doesn't to you, but it is, isn't it, really? It's quite I reach a significant age this year, so I'm very conscious of how the years have passed. We still
is 21 again. For anyone who is listening and can't see her face, she is 21.
Yeah, again and again and again.
We'll be taking no more questions.
We do still get the odd phone call from somebody who had bought something back then from John Lewis's or Debenhams, and it's been in their loft and they need a replacement part. It's amazing. It doesn't happen often, but and we know, because I've still got the products, that they last. So, but they haven't been played, with full time since 1996, 97. They've just been in and out of the loft. But it wouldn't surprise me if there was.
And do you still make spare parts for people? If someone got in touch with you and said, I need a spare part for this, and it's from the original batch, would you be able to make them a piece?
Yes. Yeah. The way my father and then sister, when she joined us, set up the manufacturing. And this was back before the day of recycling and sustainability. We always thought that it was necessary to supply. Well, number one, you built your products to a certain quality, but then you had the capability, if somebody did need a replacement part, that you could do that to service that product, rather than have it chucked away and having to buy a new one, which is the culture that we're really in at the minute, isn't it? This throwaway culture, and we're trying to turn the tide of retail and buying, and people's ways of choosing things and spending their money, and to think more about the environment and less about the throwaway culture that we seem to have developed nowadays.
There's probably an interesting parallel, actually, when you said that you were across the gangway or whatever from Sega, when all of those video games came in, and I had a PlayStation 1 when it was probably in the 2000s, actually, I think, that I got it. And when they broke, you couldn't fix them. But I remember a lot of the toys that I had when I was little, back in the day, you would mend them, or your dad would be able to mend them, or your mum would be able to mend them, and you could make a piece for them or whatever. And it seems like everything swerved away from that, and we're heading back to where we kind of were already. Yeah.
Interesting going.
In my opinion.
Interesting going. We were talking about us going through photographs. We were also going through other boxes in the attic and found train sets that our children had and then had come out for the grandchildren in games and puzzles. So we've kept all that down, because, as I say, Jess is expecting our first grandson in about 6 weeks. So they were originally bought in 1989, so it's Brio and things like that. And we we can use them still today. They were looked after and they were made to a certain standard of quality.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's not the case necessarily nowadays. People say to us, why don't you sell your boards and easels to such and such? Well, the retail market doesn't want to pay 80 to 100 pounds for a board and easel. It probably wants to pay 15 or 20. Whereas our products are designed to go into a learning environment, have 30 children around them, 5 days a week, 8 hours a day or whatever, and we offer a 10-year guarantee. So whereas that's not necessarily the same, but I think the tide will turn. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
It is.
So what happened next after you created those first drops in your unit for Debenhams and John Lewis? How did Twoey develop from that initial order to now? What's been the journey?
An exciting one, yeah. So as the business grew, because the business was financed by us, this little unit that we first rented, and having had this £5,000 CNC machine, moved on to the next level to a bigger industrial unit on Station Yard here in Wigton, and a £30,000 CNC machine.
What is a CNC machine?
It's a computer numerically controlled. That's what the CNC machine, and sorry, the CNC stands for, and it's a machine that cuts out all the shapes and things and drills the holes. It does, you produce a CAD drawing, and I don't do technical, really.
I was going to say I don't do that technical either, but it sounds interesting.
Yeah, and I think that particular one cost us £30,000. So because we'd started then quite quickly picking up other customers, especially in education, because of my dad's engineering background, we were looking at manufacturing of products in an engineered way rather than cobbled together bits of wood, which is how things were back in the day, supplying into the education market. So yeah, we moved to the next unit. Then it got to the point where we had 4 units that we rented from 2 different landlords on Station Road on 2 different industrial estates, and it became quite difficult to manage the business because you'd have one machine in one building, another machine in another, then maybe packing elsewhere, and moving this all around became very cumbersome. And there was a main road, Station Road, in between these 2 industrial estates. And I remember once somebody was in the forklift loaded up with components for a product, and they all these bits slid off into the middle of the road off the forklift. And so that created havoc. So I
bet that was a fun day.
Yeah, I think so. Can't remember it specifically, I remember just seeing all these components across the road. I think there were probably quite a few upset people then. But anyway, so yeah, we then decided that we needed to be on one site. And there wasn't anywhere in Wigton really that was big enough for us to rent, because we knew we had to build in some capacity for growth as well. So Mum, Dad and I had been paying into pension schemes for many years, into private pension schemes, and the money wasn't doing a great deal, and the law had changed. So that you could set up your own self-administered pension scheme, and use that money in certain ways. So we took our monies out of the institutions, set up our own pension scheme, which built this factory where we are today, which we opened in 2006. We did. We moved from these 4 units, moved everything under one roof. And it's amazing. I think we were nearly doubling the space, square footage of what we currently had. And when we first moved in here, we filled it. We did. So that took some organising.
So you managed to double it, but as soon as you doubled, you realised you'd expanded and actually you needed all the space anyway.
No, I think we didn't necessarily need all the space. We weren't thinking, well, you know what it's like, perhaps when you move house, you know, you move up, you scale up into a bigger house, and you think, oh, this is going to be empty, you know, the stuff that you may have may not fill it. But lo and behold, you move into a new house and God, you can fill every corner. And I think it was the same for us, you know, we didn't have to, but wow, we've got this space. So we filled it and then realized that, you know, we needed to get better organized, which is what happened. So, yeah, we moved in 2006 and then had a royal opening, which we now are very careful about shouting about it. You never know what to say for the best here, and I don't know whether you want to put this in or not. I don't. Some years before, I'd been invited by, I can't remember whether it was the chamber or whoever it was, to go down to West Lakes with a few of our wares to meet the Duke of York. Yes.
So it was a royal opening.
It was a royal.
For a royal who was working at the time of the opening and may not be working now.
Exactly. And my parents, they were so thrilled. I think now if they were alive, it would be a bit different. But they were so thrilled that we'd managed to get him to come and open their factory, because they were big royalists. So for us all then, before we knew what we knew, or we know now, sorry.
Yeah.
It was a big day.
But it doesn't take the shine off the actual event at the time, does it? Because it is one of those things, you know, you look back and hindsight's a wonderful thing, and retrospectively, you know, what has happened is happened, and we're not here to discuss that. But at the time, for a company in Cumbria to get a member of the royal family to come and open their new factory is a great achievement, and it's celebrating everything that is, you know, British manufacturing and
absolutely,
you know, growth and ambition. And
I think he was at Sellafield before he came here and was presented with some cut glass there, I think, from what I remember, and we offered him local cheeses and a plaque.
Well, why would you not want local cheeses?
Precisely.
Cheese is amazing.
And this is what he said, actually. He said he looked forward to eating it and sharing it with everybody else. So, you know, because I suppose they must get, whichever royal, they must get used to being given all sorts of stuff.
I bet they do. I bet they go back and they're like, oh, well, I got this. I know Suzanne had told us a story about Her Majesty the Queen came and was given a bottle of gin and was delighted with the gin and said she'd be enjoying that. And I would imagine that actually it's probably wonderful for them to be able to try all these amazing things that are made in the UK.
Right, I agree. You know, there's only so much crystal you can have, isn't there, really? And I mean, I would never turn my nose up with someone giving me cheese or gin. No, me neither. I love
And then, so you had the royal opening, you've moved into your factory. What happens next? Because Twoey is still going crazy strong. You're still at the helm. How has it developed since 2006, moving into your big factory? That you probably are fit to bust in now, are you?
No, because as you Well, yes, probably we are, because of this mad time that we've all been through in the past couple of years. We're holding stock of raw materials like we've never held before, because getting deliveries of some materials is rather difficult, and also we need to try and keep the pricing down, so we're having to buy bigger batches of raw material. So and if we didn't have to do that, if we were managing the business as we had done previously, we would not be bursting at the seams. So yes, 2006 the opening. 2009 we acquired another business in education, a company that designed and manufactured curriculum-based products. So that's soft, hands-on products to help teach science or languages. So this company made this children's tunic that obviously a child will put on, and all the organs of the body were outside and velcroed onto this tunic, so that a child could rip off the organs, and it'd be very hands-on. You know, they were all like a bit like fuzzy felts in some ways, but and we still today sell hundreds of them.
I'm laughing because we had one of those. We had one of those at school.
Oh, did you?
And I remember sticking the organs on and the lungs and all that. I remember that.
Hands-on learning is still today, you know, despite all the technology, is still the best way, you know, and some in with some children it's the only way they learn, actually. So yes, we bought that business that was based in Northampton in 2009 and moved that up here. And at that point we extended the factory as well, because we needed the space to put this the manufacture. At the time, the manufacturing of those products was outsourced to a couple actually over in near Hull. But they were unable to cope with the growth that we were seeing. So we, first of all, we actually worked with Remploy down at Cleator Moor, but then of course they closed. So we decided to bring it in-house, and hence we extended the factory. And yeah, we've battled on through the years, and yes, here we are 26 years later, and we're still here. My parents, of course, aren't here anymore. After they died, my sister decided that she wanted to do other things, so left the business. My parents left shares to the girls, my two daughters. So they are now working in the business as well and have their shares. And yeah, we just it's been hair raising for the past 2 years. It has, but we come through. I don't know any business that hasn't found it difficult.
Absolutely.
But it for us, you know, there is lots of issues, things that have happened, but you have to turn around those and make it a positive. You know, if at all possible. You know, it's given us the opportunity to, because it's made us look at procurement, at sustainability, because we've had to do it, really. You know, never before, as I said earlier, have we held so much raw material stock as we have now. And now we, you know, for instance, we now source, because we were before Brexit, another thing we don't want to talk about really, is it? A catastrophe. We were buying our MDF from Spain, but because of Brexit, we thought, oh dear, and the pandemic, we didn't think that was wise to be doing that, because we didn't know what was going to happen. So we resourced to Egger in Hexham. So that's where our MDF comes from, which falls nicely into one's sustainability, one's carbon footprint. Traveling 30 miles from Hexham is far better, isn't it, than
From Spain,
northern Spain. So it gave us lots of opportunities to look at things like that, review the things that we did and how we did them.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because you said earlier about people down in London and in the south don't know there's anything above Manchester. And I often get, when I used to work down south, and even foreign friends that I have, because of my red hair and my funny accent, they all think I'm from Scotland. My accent's funny, not that strong. And we're nearly there, we're on Hadrian's Wall, but you know, it's London or it's Scotland. That's it. And you've got these amazing companies like Egger, like yourselves, who can work together and create these amazing products.
Yeah, I think originally I said that they didn't know anything north of Watford. Well, they have progressed.
Now it's Manchester. It was Watford at the time.
That's right, because I think we, despite, you know, the hard work of chambers, our MPs, etc., there is still this poor understanding of what exists in between Manchester and the Scottish borders. I think we're still overlooked, and I don't see it changing much, despite everybody's hard work and shouting about it. Although we are lucky, aren't we? We have got a lot of big business here. We've got Pirelli, we've got Nestle, we've got New Balance, we've got Thomas Armstrong. So we, you know, why aren't we being recognised, actually? Because we can support such industry.
Absolutely.
And there should be more. But yeah, no, our cronies in the south still have an issue.
They've forgotten about us.
Yeah,
we need to be less modest.
Yeah, I think they do forget. What is HS2 going to do for us?
Remains to be seen.
It does, and I personally, and this is my only personal thought, I wonder why we're spending all that money on that, because when the trains are working, you know, I do London and back in a day from Carlisle, 3 hours and 10 minutes, some of the trains, or 3 hours 20. It's amazing. It's not going to be any quicker on HS2, is it, really? I don't think. And it's not coming this far north anyway.
Yeah, no.
So
just have to get there.
Yeah. So yeah.
Can I ask, your father did a lot of the creative and a lot of the creating and the building the product, and you said manufacturing them in such a way that they could slot together and they could be replaced. Who took that over as he started to wind down, and who does that now?
We have a design department now who does it. Dad was never quite a detail person. He wasn't. He was the innovative entrepreneur. So even, you know, we took on CAD engineers quite early on, or one engineer at the start. Probably that will have been in about 1999. And we've still got a guy here who has been with us now 16 years in that department. Yeah, so we get our ideas. Everybody gets the ideas. We try and work we're really trying to work hard in building relationships with local schools and nurseries, to work with them on product development. We did our last product photography session at is it Kirkland Primary School down near Rara. We need those partnerships to develop products, because that the innovation that he had, it's a bit like nowadays, you can't redesign the wheel, really. The wheel has been designed. So these partnerships with local schools and nurseries is really important, because the how children are taught nowadays is different.
Mm-hmm.
It is. What resources they need are different. I chair, we're members of our trade association, and up until I think last year I chaired their furniture special interest group. Now I chair their early years special interest group, and we have this ongoing it's not a battle, this ongoing rapport with the technology, what they call the ed tech department, and they're all about software and things like that. And we have this banter going on because there's too much of this ed tech. We know moving forward, technology, yes, it is the thing. However, in learning, hands-on, and children learn far better.
Mm-hmm.
Not being stuck in front of a screen, from the moment they're born, really. It's, they learn with a cardboard box. You don't actually need some of the expensive things we make. A cardboard box works wonders.
More than sufficient.
Absolutely. So yeah, these partnerships with schools are very important for us to continue. It's no good us making designs that are not going to sell and not needed.
Yeah.
And also, before we sell products out there in the big wide world, we'd like them to be put through their paces, to make sure that they're fit for purpose.
So they get really product tested by real children.
Yep. Yeah, because you can design what you think is the most robust products, and then you put it into a nursery or a school, and actually it's like we make bookshelves, and when our team are designing them, they know that they have to design in to them the ability to be used as a climbing frame.
Yeah,
that's what people can do. They swing on chairs, they climb up bookshelves. So, and there's no test for that.
No,
whereas a toy specifically has to be tested.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas little nursery furniture doesn't. So we would design a product to take, toy safety and standards into the design, and the fact that something could be used in a totally different way. Hence the importance of getting them out to find out how a child will really use a product.
Mm-hmm. It would be an interesting focus group, isn't it? Because those age groups can't necessarily give you feedback verbally. They can just use it, and you observing how they use it can think, well, that maybe wasn't a good idea, or actually that was an excellent idea, and we didn't even think that would happen.
And now, for instance, I remember when my children were young, you discouraged them drawing on the furniture. However, now a lot of educational furniture has a dry wipe surface on it, or a magnetic surface, or chalkboard,
Mm-hmm.
so that the children can draw on it. And so
Amazing.
I remember specifically trying to persuade my children not to draw on the walls or the furniture when they were little, and now we encourage it.
Yes.
In early years, yes.
And do you know what? I have a funny story about this. I drew on walls when I was little once, and I never ever did it again. Ever. And then I worked in a very swanky office in Dublin, and this guy who was very creative picked up this pen and started sprawling all over the office wall, and I was horrified. Like, what are you doing? It was like, it's a dry white wall, it comes off. And I was like in my late 20s, And we're still like, please don't draw on the furniture, don't draw on the walls. So it's amazing how that stays with you. And I bet those children will be so creative, and they'll be so used to being able to draw on walls that in these big fancy offices that, you know, people have now with all the dry white walls and technology and touch screens and things.
Dry white.
And creativity everywhere.
And you do have to allow that in early years. You do. That's how, you know, if we look at the way teaching and learning is done in you know, Scandinavia, the children actually don't start to learn until over 7. They're learning through play at first. They are. So much can be learnt through
playing.
Just
playing.
Yeah, exactly.
What is your most popular product now, or your most popular set of products?
We have 60 products on our inside furniture range that we hold in stock because they're big sellers, and invariably it's storage units actually, or what we call our play panel range, which is something that can be used as a shop or a cafe, something like that. But it's yeah, a lot of it will be furniture. It will. From that particular range. Then we've got our outdoor range. A lot of that is, or our biggest seller there is probably these like little clay houses and garages left outside. And then water play, that's a big thing. Yeah, we've got quite a because we've got 4 ranges now. You know, each one has its own favorites, I suppose. Best sellers. Yeah.
And you've had quite an interesting and long developing career. Is there anything that really sticks with you when you think back about all the things that you've learned that really stick in your mind and think, God, I wish I'd known that sooner, or I'm amazed that works like that, or I didn't expect that to happen?
I think every day I think of something different. I do in some ways regret not taking time out for myself over the years and helping to build, you know, working with my parents in the original car industry business and then building this business. And now suddenly I find myself at this ripe old age and having to look at succession planning and things like that. And I'm thinking, oh, what am I going to do? Because I haven't really developed anything else other than work. I go to the gym 3 times a week now. I do. Which is desperation more than anything else. Trying to stop that aging process and live longer, not because I like exercise at all. Park run, although in my case it's park walk and jog. Started doing that.
Oh wow. And you'll be able to keep up with your grandchildren when they're running around the garden?
Oh, absolutely not. No. Oh. So yeah, no, that's probably one of my regrets. You know, what I've tried to make sure in this business that people who have our employees who have children, young children anyway, and my own children, that they can have time to, you know, I missed out on so many sports days, parents' evenings, plays and all things like that when my children were young. So I wanted to make sure that people who work for us and my daughters didn't do the same and have the same regrets, because you miss on so much. So yeah, that's a bit that.
Something you wish you'd done more of.
Yes, yeah, I do. I'm not quite ready to become a full-time member of the History Society or the WI in the village, but helping with Meals on Wheels sounds a good thing to do. And I have actually enjoyed and getting involved in, we take quite a few apprentices here. Years ago, there was something called CBEC, which was the sort of interface between industry and education. And my sister and I went around a lot of schools helping out in the preparation of youngsters coming out into the big wide world and, practice interviews and things like that. And so that now, because all the funding went for that, didn't it? But now you've got Inspire. So it's nice to be able to go back and try and help a bit, because society has changed, I think, and we do need to do more for our youngsters to help them understand about the big wide world, and because there's not a money tree, is there?
Sadly not.
No.
Sadly not. It would be lovely if there was one, if someone could just hurry up and discover it. That would be
exactly. And I was a bit of a mean mother. I never gave my children very much pocket money because I didn't want them growing up thinking they were going to inherit a business. So if they wanted a mobile phone and Oompa Loompa cream, then they had to earn it. So
Oompa Loompa cream.
Yes, that's fake tan. Which back in the day was a big thing.
It was.
Yeah. So they both had jobs at the age of 13. My eldest started in the cafe in the village we live in. My youngest had a paper round, although she learned very quickly that if she asked Grandad, she wouldn't have to walk around the village. Grandad would drive around the village. So a lot of thought about that.
She's a problem solver, that one.
Yeah. In some ways, I suppose you could put it like that. I think of other things, though.
And they've both come into the business, so you'll soon be on third generation family business. So, and do you think your parents and yourself would be really proud to know that actually the next generation does want to take over and does want to get involved? Or did you not envisage that at the very beginning?
Oh, it was always something that my parents wanted. And they wanted us, I think in the early days, and my sister and I laugh about it now, we think our father thought that we'd never get proper jobs, so he'd employ us, sort of thing. Yeah.
You had faith.
And I remember when we first learned that, we were both quite put out by it, but yeah, I get it. I do. But it was always my parents' want that the children, would grow up and work in the business, which they are now, but they've both been out in the big wide world, first of all, because I think probably working in a small family business is more difficult than working out there in the real world.
Yeah. In what ways?
It's very difficult to have that defining line and separating personal from work. It took me probably 15 years to really understand that and live with it, cope with it. It's really not easy. And there was never, from my point of view, if the girls didn't want to join this business, and that they didn't have to, because I knew how hard it was. Yeah. But they've both, had a desire, because that's what Grandad and Nanny wanted. But they only joined when the business needed their skills. They didn't just come for the sake of employment. Tara worked for Hospedia up in Dumfries, managing shifts in their call centre. Jessica worked in product development at Nesco here in Carlisle. So they both came with skills that the business needed. It did, and they both joined in jobs that were there, and they took on extra learning. Tara, because she was more technical, she loved design and technology at school, so she came and did an apprenticeship with, I can't remember, was it Gen 2 or the college, can't remember. So she did a mechanical engineering course, and then Jess, when she joined, did a degree in leadership and management with the university, which she finished with honours last year, because it's important that they get a more formal understanding. They both needed, as I say, to do a bit more learning about the business environment. And also it's good for your employees to see that you're never going to treat your other family members 100% the same as you do your other employees.
Yeah.
But it is important that your employees see that they are being treated to a certain extent the same as them. Because, and respect is earned, not given. So Tara, she's been with us longer because she's the eldest, so she's gone around most departments.
Yeah,
she has, and now handles procurement, a bit of accounts, and is starting to get more and more involved with the production control. And then Jess, who's just about, will be going on mat leave very shortly, does sales and marketing and customer services and design. So they're both their areas of expertise, really.
And they complement each other quite well by the sounds of it, those two areas.
Yeah,
and they can cross over and support each other, but they prop each other up, those, which is a great way for it to work out, because sometimes it doesn't always work that way.
No, and I suppose in some ways it's very much like my sister and I were originally, you know. So whether they'll stay, who knows? One doesn't know. They're not forced to stay here.
No.
Because it isn't easy at all. It's not easy working with family, and you know, being family members doesn't help you when you're managing people a great deal, you know. So it's really, really not easy. But the choice will be theirs as to whether they want to continue running the business. You know, I'm trying now to not work on a Friday, take a day off, and yeah,
revolutionary.
Absolutely. Because I do know that if I'm here all the time, I will poke my nose in, and the only way they're going to learn is by doing things, making those decisions, making those mistakes.
Yeah,
you know, you can't learn a lot of these things by reading a book. You know, yes, Jessica has a degree in leadership and management. However, doing it is a totally different kettle of fish. So
hands-on learning.
Absolutely.
Hands-on learning.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So if you had to distill down your business ethos into one phrase, what would it be?
You've stumped me, because I probably couldn't put it down into one sentence. You know, I think you only get out of life what you put into it. Working hard and being inclusive. You know, we here, our workforce is the extension of our family. It is, and that's a given, but it's not the same everywhere else, is it? And it's not being in that environment isn't for everybody. You know, some people find that difficult. Respect. There's just so many things.
Yes.
There are, and it would depend on who one was talking to as to what one would say. But
and you said that your staff are like members of your family.
Yeah.
But what 3 non-negotiable behaviours do you have for people that work with you and join that family?
Respect, compassion, and the third one. Oh, we're so lucky. You know, we've got one, our production supervisor has been with us, or she'll just be coming up to 25 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, I can't think of a third thing. Respect and compassion, and, you know, support is another thing. We all should, it's what a family does, support.
Support each other.
Yeah.
There's some interesting questions. You're not the first person I've stumped with these questions.
Yeah, I'm sure. I think the support and, as I say, respect, you know, the first thing my father ever did when he came in to work in the morning, and it's something I still do, is before you come to your office or anything, you go around and check that everybody's okay, that they've got no issues, that, you know, if you know that their child is ill or their mother, that, you know, you're there to support. And that's really
that's really important, and I think that's it's a really undervalued thing, isn't it? You know, if something's happening in your personal life, whether your child is ill or your mother is ill, it's going to creep into work. You can't stop it.
No. There are some people, however, who have taken it for granted and taken the mickey. You're going to get that anywhere. As I said earlier, not everybody is suited to working in that sort of environment.
No.
So yeah, I can't think of. It would be interesting to ask our workforce what they felt. Actually, they wouldn't tell us. I think I'd have to get the third party in. But sometimes I wonder, do we actually get the truth? Because you say to people, we need feedback, you know, blah, blah, blah. And they tend then to clam up and not say anything. But it's like, we want to know about our products out in the field, if there's a problem, if they arrive damaged. Because the only way we're going to improve in product quality and service is by knowing the truth of what's going on. And it's the same when you're employing people, you know, is that you want them to talk to you.
Yeah, you need anonymous surveys that are actually anonymous. Yeah, but so people are honest.
Tried that. They just write a load of rubbish. not the actual truth.
You need a third party in there.
Yes, I do actually. And in fact, we have got a third party coming in to do exactly that in a few months, because they say, how can we improve? Because now employment, you know, they're finding employees at the moment is a nightmare. Recruitment, oh my word. It's not only about money, although that's very important, but it's about other things, how you are as an employer, you know, how you support your team. And that's always been, you know, we had a young lad leave us to go to a bigger company, and he'd done his apprenticeship here with us. He came back 3 weeks later because he just couldn't get on with this.
Didn't like it.
No, because he felt totally out of place. People didn't talk to him, and you know, but that's the environment, you know, it is.
Yeah.
So, can't remember why I went off on that tangent.
Yeah, but they're the best ones. In your opinion, what is your superpower?
My superpower. Oh God.
Everybody has one, so you're not allowed to say that you don't have one.
Might be my mouth. Actually, I do tend to get a bit carried away.
In what way is that your superpower? Because it just comes out.
Probably, and it's probably not. It's more of a superpower that is detrimental, because I can have this habit of putting my feet in my mouth now, which is not good. Oh, blimey. I don't think I've been subjected to such difficult questioning before, actually. Although I don't get asked that often, but compassion maybe.
That's a good superpower to have.
Support. I can't think of anything else. What do other people say then?
All sorts. Compassion, understanding.
Yeah.
What other superpowers have we had? Tenacity. Vulnerability, actually, I think was one very interesting
one.
Superpower.
Yeah, very.
What is the most common misconception of you, and what would you say to set it straight?
I think I frighten a lot of people, I think. And it goes back to this mouth thing, because be it employees.
What is it that frightens them?
My bluntness, I think. Not because I lose my temper and things, because maybe I did when I was 20, but now I'm the age I am. I haven't got the energy.
21.
21.
Yeah.
Now I have to be careful, because my granddaughters think I'm 22, so I have to be very careful.
Oh, right, okay, sorry.
So yeah, I think bluntness, and I can come across, I have my mother's tone of voice that can be rather irritating and rather strong and not compassionate. And as my family is often says, do you have to say it like that, Mum?
So maybe the first impression of you is not always correct.
No, maybe not. And I do believe, we go back to this woman thing as well, that some of us, I know I find, when I'm going to visit customers, or not just customers, when I'm out there, I have to put a face on and dress a certain way, because it's like a mask.
Yeah.
Because underneath, if I don't do that, I don't feel as confident, perhaps. And I think there's quite a few people like that. So therefore you make up for perhaps this self-belief that you don't have, and the confidence that you don't think you have, you make up for it in other ways, and perhaps come across in a certain way that you don't mean to. It's just, after so many years, it's become habitual.
Yes. You almost try and play a part sometimes, don't you? And
yeah, absolutely.
You think, well, if I dress this way or look this way, then I can take on this persona.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I've yet, it was interesting, your superpower, I've yet to don a what do you call them? What was Iron Man, etc. They are
Avengers.
Yeah, what they
superheroes.
Superheroes. I've yet to take on a superhero outfit to give me the persona of being superhuman.
There is still time.
Absolutely, there is.
Never say never. We'll get you a cape for Christmas.
Thank you very much.
You can wear it around the office.
They would then think I'd got mad. They would.
Oh well, who cares? So what would you tell your teenage self if you could go back and have a conversation with teenage Jo? What would you tell her?
I would certainly tell her to have other interests, not to put her whole self into the family business or whatever. Spread the load, have a life, live life a bit more. When I look at especially my youngest daughter, all the things she did and has done, I never did. And maybe I should have. So yeah, I'd also say go to university. Not necessarily just for the accreditations, the degrees, but for the life experience as well, because that's the beginning of you going out to this big wide world, isn't it? Although I know full well that university isn't for everybody, but it's another regret I have. And people say, well, why don't you go back and do an MBA or something like that? Oh, it's a bit late in the day and I haven't got the mental capacity to do that now, to fit it in with, work, trying to get a life, grandparenthood, etc. So, and that is a regret, because I think that even if it had been a degree in zoology or something like that, I think that can help a person with confidence, other life skills perhaps. So yeah, I would do that.
Although it sounds like you had an amazing step into the world when you went down to that hotel and Sunday dinner for 60 people. That would give you a level of confidence, I would imagine.
Yeah.
If you can do that, do anything.
And it's no disrespect to Carlisle College or Technical College as it was then. I just feel that and I think that it's all about society, isn't it? We push people to go, youngsters to go to university, get a degree. Well, I'm sorry, that's not for everybody, I don't think. I think there are a lot of youngsters out there who would like to learn on the job as such, which is why I think these apprenticeships and tea qualifications, whatever they are such a good thing. When I went to Carlisle Technical College, you could do full-time plumbing, carpentry, car mechanic. They don't do those things anymore, do they? And I think they have equally the value of,
to a degree.
Absolutely. So yeah, I would, even though I say that now about a degree, I should have gone to university.
Yeah.
But equally about the life experience. Then I was a bit of a home bird, I think.
You needed to spread your wings a bit more.
Yeah, I should have. Yeah.
Now this is a question that does stump people. So so if you've got an answer straight away, I'll be dead impressed. If there was a movie to be made about your life, what would it be called, and which actor or actress would play you?
I'd like somebody like Julie Walters to play me. Yeah. What would it be called? Oh God, I'm not surprised. Others have been stumped by this. And she's not, I couldn't have somebody like Maggie Smith or Judi Dench, because they're I don't know. I feel more Julie Walters, although I have always thought I might like to be M in a Bond.
Well, you are. You're M of Twoey Toys.
Yeah. I haven't got a fast enough car here.
We'll get you one. We'll take you over to M Sport and get you a fast car.
Oh, that would be good.
That would be good fun, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Right, so these are quick fire questions.
Yep.
It's just this or that.
Mm-hmm.
Answer honestly.
Mm-hmm.
The first one that you think.
Yep.
Phone or text?
Phone.
Email or meeting?
Meeting.
Tea or coffee?
Tea.
Beach holiday or skiing holiday?
It would have been beach, but now, no, it would have been ski, but now it's beach.
Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Sweet or savoury?
Savoury.
And does pineapple belong on pizza?
Yes, for some, but I can't eat it.
Not for you. Every guest who comes on the podcast leaves a question for the next guest. So I will get you to leave one. But the question that was left for you is, if you could teleport to a different decade, which decade would you teleport to and why?
Oh. Oh. Well, I like Art Deco. So 1920s, 30s. But of course, that war started. But yeah, it would be the 20s, 30s, I think. Flapper styles.
That would be interesting, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Great. So thank you, Jo. Is there any other pearls of wisdom or thoughts that you would like to share?
No, I don't think so. I think, well, in the space of time, I've gone through everything, haven't I?
Yeah.
Left no stone unturned.
Absolutely not. That's why we do these.
Yeah, and I'd be really interested to hear how you're going to edit it all down.
I will. It'll be great. Well, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast.